Hi, Tom Coley, coach for Steve Taylor Community Connection, and certainly an honor and privilege to be here with my brother, Terry Crosby, superstar, and really a very important guest for us Cros today on Steve Taylor Community Connection is Mr. Bob Farley. Bob, welcome. Bob is spent a lifetime trying to help young people get the care that they need for mental health problems. And I don't know 1/1000th of what you know about it, Bob, but I do know that people that I've been associated with and people that have had those problems, they can't seem to find facilities to take care of them, and doctors to see them. It a lot of times ends up being an incarceration in a juvenile detention situation. They don't get the proper care. Talk about that, Bob, and then what you're going to try to do to ameliorate that.
Well, we have, again, like you said, a lot of experience, and it's all firsthand knowledge as far as facilities for boys or girls and young adults. And it's just, the point of all this is mental health. People aren't being treated with mental health when they're in trouble with the law, and that's part of the problem. And it's not their fault because they're not educated in the knowledge that I think we can offer. Along with the mental health aspect, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, in the statistics of the government, it's over 55% incarcerated have it, don't even know it, and 70% of children in foster care have it and don't know it. And it goes undiagnosed, and they're treating the peripheral illness because it's related to drugs and stuff, but
right.
The fetal alcohol is deeper, and that's
Sure.
what's not being addressed. And I've been proud to be working with people in the fetal alcohol field for many, many years, over 12, 15 now.
We all know people that have suffered some form of mental illness, and I don't understand in our society that becomes a stigma, like it's their fault, or I never understood that. It's an illness is an illness, and whether it's mental illness or a physical illness like cancer or something, you need professional help and you need professional treatment. What is the stigma about mental illness, Bob? Why does that occur? I don't understand that.
Well, a lot of people, that's how they were raised, to keep it quiet.
Right.
I've seen some interviews on some other TV stations, and that's what they talked about.
Right.
That's why we also I do once a month an online, so people don't have to come in.
Right.
It's more discreet. We give tips for kids that are having issues, and with all my experience, I'm happy to share. And that's something I want to do at our local church at Cedar Creek eventually, is help them. And I don't care if it's in person or not, but the mental health treatment needs to be in person.
Right.
As far as giving them tips and stuff, that's one thing, but directing them in the right locations. And there's so many different services. Our one son must have 7 different agencies right now taking him in a path, and he's done excellent, and people don't even recognize him from a year ago.
Yeah.
I have an older daughter that has fetal alcohol, and we're so proud of where she's gotten and what she's been through, and we've never let go of her. We know we're not the only people out there.
Yeah. Now, you've adopted
Yes.
how many children?
We've adopted 6 out of 9 and fostered 15.
Wow.
And they were all newborn to 3-year-olds, so I was in diapers for a long period of time. That's my stock option there. But it was priceless to see things that people didn't think they could do, or to make sure they go to help me grow or whatever needed to get on track, so it was well documented, so wherever they ended up, there was a history that they knew that what they needed.
Well, that I'm sure you're familiar with this, but the Cros has heard me say it a number of times, the John Kennedy saying of one person can make a difference and everybody should try. Bob, you're a living example of that. If we all took things on like Bob and his wife are doing, our society and our country would be a lot better.
Right. Mr. Bob, I'm really, really excited with some of your immediate goals in regards to, looking after our young and making sure that they're receiving the support that they obviously need. As you know, we have a lot of current violence in the city of Toledo, and I just want to ask you, what would be your perspective on that? I mean, I think a lot of it is down to mental illness that hasn't been diagnosed, and I just like your opinion on that.
Well, I've spoken to many sheriffs, and they concur that half their facilities are filled with half people with mental health issues. That is part of the unknown talk about fetal alcohol. It's an executive function disorder, so they don't realize that that's wrong or not safe, or And it's like, just imagine train tracks and there's some missing. There is no drug to fix that. It's a different type of therapy, and what, you know, I mean, we started, we thought, yeah, this isn't gonna work. Well, we're so elated and grateful that it did, and it doesn't work. Everybody's different.
Right.
High IQ, low IQ, but they don't realize what is wrong. And I can't say who, but a therapist I talked to when I sent her each day's a gift.org card, she said, that's one of my clients. He's been in and out of jail. He's never been diagnosed like this. Your stuff on your article says that. I said, well, it's not my article, it's just information, but that's one of the biggest, sadly kept secrets in the United States today, is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. If you look it up, it'll only show up in the top 10. Not that we're not going to treat all of those, all those patients, but that will be a specialty that our goal is to treat the fetal alcohol, because we feel ADHD is the number one thing.
Right.
Well, ADHD and all these other ones are encompassed with the root problem of fetal alcohol. Right. And it's not that someone did something wrong or intentionally did it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's, we're here to deal with the hand the child was dealt with, or the adult. And I always say, you know, God does never give you more than you can handle. It's what you do with it,
Right.
who you become.
Well, you know, Bob, I think Cross asked a very salient question there, and that is, you know, our country's been inundated with these mass shootings. And to piggyback off of Cross's point, most of them probably are mental illness associated when you really break them down and look at them. But the mental illness part of it certainly is a big part of the component, wouldn't you say?
I would say it's probably more than 75% based on what I've researched and looked at. And we do have a goal, if we create this facility, that my son and I come up with, have a closed system that 911 calls could come in with a code, and if they have someone they need to know if there's something to de-escalate it, they would be able to get that information out to that first responder.
Wow.
So that is, you know, we're trying to think of the whole concept of this, not just one part of it, because we've experienced all of it.
Right.
And I know it's outside the normal box, but it's time we get the box out of the way and really take this on firsthand and do some great things. I think I've talked to people at the state level, and they said, you know, you'd be full. You could do 5 of these in the state and be full.
Well, let's bring folks in on this. And I don't know how much you can talk about this, but just in generalities, and if I set this up wrong, just punch me in the side of the face. That's what Cross does. I take a pretty good punch. I'm not much of a fighter, but Bob, I can take a punch. You know, I'm what they call a tomato can in the boxing business, so I can take a punch. You're working with the Mercy, who owns St. Luke's Hospital. And your proposition is, yours and your wife, who have been in this industry forever, and you know it inside and out, of mental health for young people, taking over the hospital and making it a live-in facility for young folks with mental illness situations, a live-in treatment center. Do I have that right?
Sort of.
Okay.
Okay, there's different levels, like Cobacker in Toledo at UTMC is a great facility, but it only has 16 beds.
Okay.
You have to be at least 12 to get in. We wouldn't have that requirement. They also, JRC, which is a great facility in Wood County, there's 5 more like it in the state. It's 42 beds for 10 counties. That's for kids that got in trouble with the law, and either they're going to jail or treatment.
Okay.
Well, 42 beds for 10 counties, you know, a lot
You
of
can
people.
do the math on that.
Yeah. And in north of Columbus, I've been told by probation officers and personal experience, there is no facilities north of Columbus if you do a straight line across the state.
So if you could get the old St. Luke's, and how many beds, how many live-in people could you handle?
Well, as far as the residential, I guess
Yes.
you would call it, for the program that the state does is usually 6 months to a year, depending on how they get through it. It's currently a 300-bed unit at the hospital. We're only looking at beds, not hospital treatment centers, so it easily could be converted into 600 beds minimum. So if we even took half of that, we could actually treat 300 more young adults that are ended up in jail,
Who need the treatment?
that need the treatment.
Unfortunately, there's not a lack of people that need the treatment.
No,
right?
we would have a floor for boys and a floor for girls. We could have a floor for the young adults, split it. I haven't been in there to look at it. I'm just encouraged with all the support we've gotten from different schools, how they agreed that this is needed, because they have nowhere to put kids that have problems
Right.
in schools. And we've experienced that too. And it's just, I guess I'm the guy that, my wife and I have put it all together, on all the things that aren't being addressed, but
Yes.
there is no answer for them,
Yeah.
so they can't address it.
And Cross and I are in schools all the time. Cross, you may have something on this. Schools aren't equipped to handle these kind of problems. I mean, they're really not. They have counselors who do a great job,
Oh, yeah.
get all that. But these kind of problems are far beyond, Cross, the scope of counselors.
Yes, yes. And I would totally agree with you, Tom. And this is so very, very important. I mean, it really, really is. I mean, you are really filling a gap
Yes.
in our community
Yes.
that it is currently doesn't exist. Okay, and so I'm really, really excited about your project. I hope you're able to get it off the ground. That would be very, very nice. And I wish you the best of luck with that because it is certainly needed. It is certainly needed.
Well, see, and you made up a point I'd like to bring up. We're not going to compete with anybody that's out there. We're not going to compete with
Right.
the Children's Hospital at Toledo
Sure.
or Nationwide because they don't have this.
Right.
And sadly, the hospitals only want a short-term stay and they need to place them somewhere.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, well, that's great, but you have both sides of it with the law problems, school problems, and just general mental health problems. So again, we've experienced and lived through nightmares. I don't think there's a mental health illness we haven't addressed, dealt
Yes.
with personally, and I guess God brought us here to get that, to bring it out and help the community back.
Well, Bob, we couldn't be more proud of you and your wife for the adoption of the kids and helping young people that desperately need help, for the larger view of trying to create a system where young people with mental health problems can get treated and can ameliorate their lives and they can be productive citizens. And you should be so proud of the efforts that you're making, and hopefully the St. Luke's hospital, now run by Mercy, could be turned over to you to do that kind of work. So we wish you the best, and we certainly hope that
Good luck with that, sir.
Well, I thank you. We just, need support. They still have meetings with Mercy about these projects throughout the month of August, every Tuesday. Obviously, funding would be a key thing for us to give Mercy a confidence that we have community support
right.
on what we can accomplish. I don't see any downside to this because, again, we're not stepping on anyone's toes. We're
Sure.
not blaming anyone. We are addressing stuff that they can't address because there's nothing out there available.
Right.
We this gentleman right here, Mr. Steve Taylor, who's got a book for you. We're going to try to get Steve. Steve's the biggest heart, as Cross knows, in America, and see if we can get Steve involved. And he's incredible about helping in the community, he and his father. So hopefully we can make something happen. Bob, thank you so much for being with us today. We
Thank
really
you very much. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it too, and thanks for everything you guys are doing.
Totally our honor, Bob. Tom Cole, the coach, superstar Terry Crosby for the Steve Taylor Community Connection.